Hey, I'm Jamie with Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about tile selection in games. Not the placement of the tiles, but how you get the tiles. And some of the things I talk about today could be applied to cards, to dice, to other components, but I think tiles are particularly related to this topic just because of how they are used after you often gain them in games. Not Kevin. This topic was introduced to me by Luke Allison, who is the designer of a game called Scenery. So I wanted to briefly show Scenery and mention one of Kevin. Not I keep saying Kevin. Luke's picks for this category. So Luke said in habitats slash scenery. So the image here, I haven't played this game. This I believe is Scenery. I don't know about habitats, but he says the tiles in Scenery, the tiles are in a grid, and each player controls a pawn that moves around the grid, always taking an adjacent tile, but cannot move backward. So that is a unique tile selection process using these pawns. And then Luke also highlighted another game unrelated to Luke, as far as I know, called Middle Ages that I also have not played. Here's Middle Ages. Luke says tiles are arranged in rows where each row is a different round. Tiles are essentially organized as less valuable to more valuable, left to right. Players place a pawn on a tile in the row. The leftmost pawn takes their tile and then places their pawn onto the next row. This means the less valuable tile is associated with the first choice for the next round, a nice decision design space. So thank you to Luke for introducing this topic. I like the topic, and I thought that he provided some good examples. He even mentioned a few others, but they might show up on the list as we proceed. So next up, we have some panelist picks. I have loosely ranked them based on how I feel about these games, including them somewhat in the top 10 for this list. So first up, we have World Wonders by our solo gamer, Aryn. This one's last on the list simply because I have not played World Wonders, but I really want to. Aryn says, build your city using polyomino tiles in such a way to be able to place various polyomino-shaped World Wonders within it. You are given 7 coins to buy tiles from the market, 9 coins if you take out a loan. Buy what you can and place the tiles in your city. A very satisfying puzzle. So yeah, sounds like a neat game. I need to play this game. Next up, we have a game that might have been my favorite game, actually, from all these picks. I really, really like the tile selection in this game. I really, really like the game in general. Our family gamer panelist, Skylar, chose Planet Unknown. In Planet Unknown, Skylar says, the game comes with a lazy Susan, and you get to spin it. Not randomly, you get to choose how you want to spin this tile, how you want to orient it in relation to you and then all other players as well. Skylar says, okay, so there are a lot of other great things about it, but the Lazy Susan is so fun. The drafting mechanism features the active player turning the Lazy Susan, which is an acronym in this game, until the depot of their choice is facing them, allowing them to take a tile of their choice. All other players now also have an assigned depot as a result, from which they then take their polyomino tile. And I'll note that you actually have 2 different depots that you can choose from. You have the external depot here, and you have the internal depot. So like the red player here is facing the choice of this tile or this tile, not just one. It gives them a choice instead of having no choice at all. Skylar goes on to say, there are fun tech tracks as well as meteorites to collect. My kids love the tactile pieces as well as spinning the Susan. It plays up to 6 people, which makes it hit our table quite often. And this is, I think, the key that makes Planet Unknown shine so well, is that this is a simultaneous pick. There is an active player. They are choosing which way to orient the Lazy Susan. But after that, all players, including that player, are choosing from the 2 tiles simultaneously and placing it simultaneously, moving up on tracks, doing all that stuff simultaneously, even though my choice as the active player is impacting other players as well. Next up, we have a Dylan, our heavy gamer. A Feast for Odin is Dylan's pick. Dylan says there are so many different ways to acquire tiles in this game that everyone is sure to find something that appeals to them. So kind of this game has a lot of different ways to get tiles, not just one default way to get tiles. Dylan says you can hunt, go fishing, breed animals, raid villages, and perform many other actions, as you can see in the image here, in order to get them. And it all comes together in a way that deeply disguises the fact that you are indeed just acquiring and placing tiles. Timing can matter too, as many of the tiles you will want to craft or plunder, which have more unique shapes, are first come, first serve. So not only is there not a generic pool, but a big pool of resources that are tiles that have the same shape, but also there are these special one-off tiles that you might try to pursue in the game as well. Last up, Our digital gamer, and I'm not sure if this game actually is available digitally. This is Caitlin, picked Fit to Print. This is another game that has a simultaneous element to it. Caitlin says Fit to Print has to be one of the most unique and intense tile selection systems. It's a real-time game, so you're selecting and placing in just a few short minutes. If that's not challenging enough, the tiles start upside down, and you grab one with only one hand, flip it over when your hand reaches your designated area, and then you decide whether you're placing it on your desk or putting it back in the pile. So you're kind of picking a news story from a pile, looking at it, and then realizing, oh, nope, I don't actually want this news story, and you can potentially put it back. In those few seconds, you're analyzing the color, the mood, the size, the type of tile, a lot of factors to consider in the decision making. And you get a penalty if you don't use all your tiles, but you also get a penalty if you grab too few and don't use enough tiles, because the theme is filling your newspaper with stories so that the local people, the local animals really in this game, can read the stories in your paper. This is a great pick. It does feel a little frantic because it is a real-time simultaneous game where you're grabbing these tiles and looking at them and placing them, but it certainly is unique and innovative. So I'll look at myself for a second here while I talk about the next section. So for Stonemaier games, we have a few games that involve tile selection. They include Between Two Cities and Between Two Castles, which have a drafting element. It's kind of two different selections. One is you are drafting two tiles from a hand of tiles and passing those tiles to the next player. But also, once you pick those two tiles and everyone has made their picks, you reveal them, and then you and the player on your left and your right, with whom you are building a city or a castle together, one castle on the left, one castle on the right, you are deciding which of those two tiles goes in which castle and where it goes. So two different levels of selection in both of those games. And then we have Stamp Swap. Stamp Swap is an I cut you choose game where you are first drafting a tile or a thing from a public pool and then putting it into one of two piles. And one player at the table will acquire one of those tiles, will win one of those piles of tiles, and then you'll keep the other one. Our other honorable mentions are Azul, Carcassonne, Cascadia, Foundations of Rome, Galaxy Trucker, King Domino, Suburbia, Takenoko, and Wild Tiled West. And now finally, we'll get to my top 6 here. And we're going to start off with kind of a dual pick here between the Isle of Skye and Castles of Mad King Ludwig. Two games with a very similar mechanism, but used in different ways. I'll focus on Isle of Skye here, but the mechanism is very similar in that it is I price, you choose. So in Isle of Skye, simultaneously, and again, you've heard me use this term a lot, I think these tile selection games, I am enjoying when they are simultaneous. I think that's kind of a commonality here. But simultaneously with all other players, you're going to randomly draw 3 tiles, put them in front of your shield here, and you are going to put your own money behind 2 of these tiles to define their value, and then an axe behind the other one, meaning that one is going away. No one's going to win that tile. That tile just disappears. No one's going to get to buy that one and place it. Then you'll reveal with all other players, and the other players will either buy these tiles for the asking price, and you get to keep this money and you earn the $5 or the $17 that they spend, or it gets all the way back around to you and no one has bought the tiles. You've already put the money forth. So you then just spend that money. I spend this $5 and I gain the tile. So there's this really nice choice between how you value the tiles, so that if someone does buy a tile that you want, that you're still getting a lot of money, or that you might try to price people out of a tile that you really, really want, but you also don't want to spend so much that you could have spent 10 coins less to win this tile. And it does give you a strong reason to look at not only your own tableau, but also the tableaus of other players, the other isles of the other players. That is the Isle of Skye. Again, Castles of Mad King Ludwig has a similar mechanism. That's number 6. At number 5, we have Patchwork. So Patchwork is a game where you're going to create a big, we'll call it a rondelle of tiles. You can see this big rondelle of tiles, just completely randomly scatter them around the table in a big circle. And then the active player will take this token and choose from one of the 3 tiles that are immediately in front of it. That one, this one, or this one. They're going to choose from those 3 tiles, and they're going to place it on their mat. Sometimes they won't be able to afford the tiles. Sometimes they will, and they'll have a full choice. but you only get to choose the 3 tiles in front of you. But I really like that it's essentially a perfect information game, but with a lot of variability based on the original setup and based on which tiles you take, because you're going to keep going around this circle choosing tiles, always looking at the next 3 until many of them are gone. So I like that it's dynamic and yet highly replayable, highly variable in terms of the order in which these tiles come out. It is maybe a little messy. It only plays 2 players. I think if you need enough players for many, many more players, there wouldn't be enough room to do this. So it's a little messy to put them out there, but it works at the 2-player count really well. That is Patchwork. At number 5. At number 4, we have the Castles of Burgundy, your Castles of Burgundy. So the tile selection process in this game stems from your 2 dice. You have a lot of different things that you can do with these 2 dice, but the main thing, probably the thing that players are most often doing, is that they are using one of the dice paired up with one of the sections of the board that has some random tiles associated with it, and they will use that die to gain one of those tiles. There's no other cost to gaining the tile. You just have to have the number matching it. And you can manipulate the die in case I have a 6, but I really want a tile that's in the 5 section instead. There are a limited number of tiles in each section, and they come out at the end. These tiles are revealed round to round. So the player order can have an impact on this game, where you might want to be the first pick to choose in the next round. It's a very simple, streamlined system, but it works really well. And it gives you, despite only having 2 dice to choose from, it gives you a lot of options, even if you don't even manipulate the numbers for the Castles of Burgundy. So I have that at number 4. At number 3, I have Glenmore 2 Chronicles. But even without the Chronicles, there are some Chronicles shown here. I think you can enjoy this game even without the Chronicles. The tile selection process in this game is a one-way action selection track. It's not the only game to do this. There are a few others to do it, but I think Glenmore does it in a really, really superb way, where each player has a meeple on this little board here. Let's see. Here I can zoom in a little bit. And the player whose meeple is furthest behind on this track, so I believe the yellow player would be the active player here, they get to move as far as they want forward to choose a tile and then place that tile in their grid. They often have to pay for the tile as well. And then the player who is the furthest behind gets to go again. So this yellow player could choose to select this tile and then also take another turn and jump ahead. They might jump ahead to a tile they really, really want that's really far ahead, or one that's not as far, because if you jump really far ahead, that could give the next person a number of turns in a row. But that is the decision space in the game. Do you go after the tile that you really, really want and give another player or other players multiple turns, or do you just kind of hang back and take what you can get one tile at a time? I think a mix of those two is probably the best way to play Glenmore 2, but it's a really great, fun tile selection process. The only thing that's maybe a little fiddly is that you have to remember that once you pick up this yellow meeple, you have to refill in the space. There should always be one empty space behind them, but you kind of have to remember to fill in the spaces as you go. Sometimes we forget when we're playing and we have to catch up and put more tiles down. That is Glenmore 2 at number 3. At number 2 is another Isle game, the Isle of Cats. In the Isle of Cats, every round, you're going to draw a bunch of random tiles from the bag, depending on the number of players in the game, and you'll put them just randomly on either side of the island. And you might be able to see here on this side of the island has the number 3. This side of the island has the number 5. That defines the value of these tiles. So you're either spending 5 for these tiles or 3 for these. Otherwise, there is no, that is just a random number applied to these tiles. A tile isn't inherently worth more or worth less. Oftentimes, the currency is so plentiful in this game that you might spend from the 5 pile to get a tile that you really, really want, even if you could get it cheaper for 3. This in itself is a great system, but I think the thing that makes it really shine is that this is a game that is very generous with the resources, and it's the type of game where you get to keep spending the resources, these fish tokens, until you decide that you are done spending them, and you don't lose any excess that you didn't spend. So every round, the game is going to give you 20 of these fish. You might carry over some from the previous round. You might draft some cards that give you even more fish. And then you get to spend those fish as often as you want until you're done spending them. So you might spend a lot to get some 3-value tiles, but like I said, you have enough to afford at least one, probably some more of these 5-value tiles instead if you want to buy them instead. But you also need the fish to actually pay for many of the cards that you're drafting in the game. That's another part of the game. But I think the economy of the game applied to, in addition to this valuation, is really clever. And I really like that the game didn't put these values on the tiles themselves. They said, these tiles are different values to different players based on the circumstances. So we're not going to value them. We're just going to make a bunch of tiles of different colors and just randomly assign them the value of 3 or 5 when they come out on the table, which I think adds to the replayability of the game. That is the Isle of Cats at number 2. Finally, we have my favorite auction game, Ra, at number 1. So in Ra, you are auctioning off one or more tiles. On your turn, generally, on a turn of Ra, you are drawing a tile from a bag and you are adding it to the auction display. I'll zoom in here so you can see that auction display right here. You're adding it to this auction display where usually there will not be 8 tiles here. You'll be adding 1 to 0 or a few other tiles there. Sometimes you will be forced to, or you will choose to start an auction, and the auction is for all tiles that have come up in that display. Many of the tiles are good, so in general, having more tiles in the display is better, but some tiles are bad. Like this auction display is actually fairly terrible because it has all these red tiles here. You don't want to win those tiles because they'll destroy other tiles that you have. Also, another dynamic in this game is that you don't really know when the auction will end. So this boat, as it moves forward throughout the round, based on auction tiles that come up, Ra tiles that come up, can determine that the round will end instantly. So you might hold back and not win an auction and hang in there late into the round in the hopes of just getting a bunch of tiles for a very low cost. But the round might just end and then you don't actually get to take anything. But I really like the idea in this. I like that it's an auction for the tiles, and I also like that it's an accumulating dynamic quantity of tiles that you might win. You might want to start an auction with very few tiles, trying to get someone else to spend their rare auction tokens, or you might just have a few tokens. There might be 3 tiles that come up, and you really want them, and you don't want them to be ruined by having more tiles that you can't afford because it'll make it more valuable for someone else, or where one of these destructive tiles come up. So just a lot of things to think about in the auction for Ra as you're deciding when to bid, when to start an auction, when to add a tile, and how to value those tiles during this auction style tile selection process in Ra at my number 1 for this pick. Again, there are many different ways to select tiles in games. I'd love to hear your top pick, maybe your favorite game that involves tile selection and why you really love the tile selection in that game. I would love to hear about that in the comments below. Thanks.